Hey there, social media family. God bless every single one of you. It is Watson Wisdom Wednesday. Welcome. This is a little teaching I'm going to do every Wednesday. And, if you lack wisdom, the Bible says you ask for it, God will give it liberally. And I think we're living in an hour where we need wisdom. And so the Lord just kind of dropped this in my heart about doing something on wisdom or teaching on something that has to do with applying wisdom every Wednesday. And so I hope this really blesses and encourages you. And so here's what we got. I'm going to be back in the book of Proverbs today. Proverbs chapter 3, beginning in verse number 5. And verse 5, 6, 7, and 8. And 5 and 6 are familiar to most, but, there's something called context in the Bible, and you have to not just pick one or two verses, but sometimes you got to bring the verses in around to really give a full understanding. And I feel like the Lord showed me something to drop out there for y'all today. So, Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight." Verse 7, "Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, turn away from evil. It will be healing to your body and refreshment to your bones." And when I read verse number 7, then I tied it in with verse number 8, I began to think about all the people that talk about how tired or weary they are, or people that seem to go into, repeated seasons of sickness or battling sickness. And I began to think about those people that I know personally. And then I began to think about verses 5, 6, and 7, and so many of those people. And maybe you're one of those people that feel like you're always tired, you're always weary, you always find yourself in a season that you're sick. And this may not apply to 100% of the people out there that this describes, but I can tell you, knowing people that I know personally and have seen in past seasons where they see this in their life, they are somebody who leans on their own understanding, and they're wise according to their own perspective. Your lens and your perspective has a lot to do with your outlook on life. And it is not wise to depend on your own lens. Because, we're all different and we're all raised different. We all have different cultures that we came out of, home life, maybe different parts of the world. Even in the United States, there's different cultures around our country here. And those things form a lens and shape your perspective. And, I even think the reason why we have some of the clash that we do in our country is because people are leaning on their own understanding and they're applying the wisdom from their own eyes versus a perspective and a lens that comes from God. Because, see, God sees all things. You are really only one-dimensional as a human, finite being. And, God knows it all. So how do I get this understanding from the Lord? How do I get wisdom from the Lord? Well, number one, you have a personal relationship with him through Jesus Christ. Number two, because once you have a personal relationship with him through Jesus Christ, then you have access to communion with him. And we're talking about communion. I'm not talking about the bread and the cup of wine or juice. But what I'm talking about is actually being able to talk and commune with God. And your wisdom and understanding can come from the voice of God that's released into your life from the relationship that you have with God. Because it's not smart to depend upon your own understanding. Growing up, I was raised and, in school, we were very, things were one way or another. It was always black and white. It's either you're right or you're wrong. And even in the Bible, there's a lot of black and white and wrong. But what happens is we weren't taught that, that if you come from a perspective to understand, like if something's right or wrong, it's black or white. Let's put it that way. It's right or wrong. And somebody's doing something that's clearly wrong. There might be a perspective and an understanding of where that person comes from to why they're doing that, which is wrong. So, for example, I really began to get my eyes open to this whenever I went to Teen Challenge Arkansas to minister. I was on staff there for 4 years. And, most of the guys that were coming there for help from addiction, they weren't bad guys. They were genuinely good guys, good people. And they just got caught up in the wrong stuff. And so like, well, why are these good people, these good men, ended up on meth, popping pills, addicted to alcohol? And what you find out is that back in their childhood or in their past, they experienced trauma, abuse. Something happened where the only way they knew how to cope with it was through a controlled substance. And then when you're like, wow. So sometimes we label people in addiction as quote unquote bad people. But the truth of the matter is, when you have an understanding of that they've been through something, that's why they got messed up, it brings a level of compassion that maybe growing up I would not have had if God had not begun to give me that understanding. If I'd have leaned on my own understanding, just labeled them as bad, just hounded them, showed them no grace, no compassion, no love, then maybe I wouldn't be able to help some of those men come out of their addiction. So that's what I'm talking about, is sometimes our own understanding takes, in our own wisdom, the wisdom we have in our own eyes, it takes the vision for what is really going on. And guys, we need to have clear vision in this hour if we're going to live for God and if we're going to help people live for God and point people in the right direction. And so today, maybe you are limited in your understanding because you have not got your understanding and your wisdom from on high. And if that's you today, remember, don't be wise in your own understanding. Don't lean on your own understanding. And if you will fear the Lord and turn away from evil, then guess what? It will bring refreshing to your bones and healing to your life. So are you sick? Are you tired? Some of you are wearing yourself out in your thoughts because you're trying to figure everything out in your own understanding. And really, you need a heavenly perspective. So don't be wise in your own eyes, no matter what you're facing today. Maybe spend some extra time in prayer. Just sit quietly. I know a lot of times we go to prayer and we'll put on like some worship music or something. Today, maybe you need to silence everything, where the only thing you will hear is his voice. Get his perspective. Get his understanding. Get his wisdom. I hope this encouraged and blessed somebody today. Hey, if this did help you, send me a message. If you'd like to find out how you can partner with our ministry, send me a message. I'll connect you with the right links and everything so you can partner and sow into what God is doing here through our ministry. God bless you. Have a great day.